Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. My fiancé slept with her coworker, then left me for him. Oh man, where do I begin? I got engaged 6 months after dating her for 3 years, and just had to break it off last week. She works for a very large financial institution and was usually out of the house until late at night. I didn't think anything was going on because I understood the nature of her job. This was her routine for our whole engagement. I would say a month ago, however, her behavior started to change. She was getting home really late at night, probably around midnight, and still getting up at 6:30 for work. I found this strange because there was no change in her job title, and in the past, she rarely had to stay that late for work. Also, when I did see her around the house, she seemed uninterested in talking and was glued to her phone. Again, this was very unusual behavior. I had no solid proof, but I started to grow suspicious. Finally, just a week ago, she came back again around midnight. I happened to still be up, and I just asked politely where she had been. I noticed right away she was drunk. The story was that her boss had her go to a late dinner. But it was full of holes, and at this point, I knew something was going on. After she went to bed, I looked in her phone and I found out she was texting her friend at work about going on dates, hiding stuff from me, and other shady things. In the morning, we had a huge argument where I wanted to know why she cheated on me. It came down to her being bored with our sex and wanting to be with other guys to make things more interesting. This was shocking and hurt me deeply. I asked her to leave, got the ring back, and cut ties completely. I'm not even sure how much of a loss I'll take from waiting this long to sell them. At least we won't have any legal difficulties going forward. I'm trying to look for any positives right now. The whole explanation of her wanting to cheat still upsets me. I never got a full explanation of why our sex was boring. I really don't understand why our sex wasn't good enough. I've studied the Kama Sutra and Tantra for a few years and have many of my own techniques. Most of what I'm describing is very advanced. And the author does go into detail, so I'm going to skip these next couple of sentences. Long story short, this is something I've practiced. I don't know if this guy was better than me or what, but it's sickening to think she ruined our potential marriage over such an immature desire. I saw on her social media that she's now dating this new guy, and I wonder how long until she does the same to him. I'm starting to feel a little bit better, but I'm still processing everything. I wanted to share this with everyone here to get some feedback. I feel a little crazy because I have nobody to talk to. If anyone has been cheated on like this before, hopefully you can shed some light on my situation. Alright, he wants some comments? Let's give it to him. Indifferent Owl starts us off. Excuse my language, but F your ex-fiancé. Whether she's bored of the sex life or was more interested in her colleague, she should never cheat. Her throwing in how sex with you wasn't enough for her is only there to justify her actions and make her feel better. Her cheating shouldn't be a reflection on you as a person, and why should it be? I'm sure anyone can be better at sex. Once you find someone new and good for you, they'll understand you, stick by you, and won't throw in excuses which will make you feel worthless. Just find that you're lucky you broke it off before you got married and that this happened for a reason. Work on yourself and do things you like. You'll become the best version you'll ever be. Make it happen. Our next comment comes from Genial Little the Poet. I'm glad I'm not the only one who's got that take from the post. However, while I agree wholeheartedly with you up to and including there's a freaking problem, I'm not going along with your last 3 sentences. At least, not necessarily. From the info we have, we don't know how she needs to have sex. All we do know is that it's not like OP does it. Sure, she might want to be treated like an animal, but equally possibly, she might want to take a dominant role, or any of a practical infinity of other options. OP clearly has some issues to resolve regarding his own approach to sex. And is anyone else scratching their head at an immature desire? But we mustn't urge that he take a brutally dominant stance going forward, in any hypothetical resumption of the relationship, when we don't have anything to say that this is how his erstwhile fiancé wants to do the deed. Our last comment comes from ZDanny001 before we move on to the next story. I'm really sorry you're going through this, and by the way you tell the story, their excuse has nothing to do with you. You could have been the best at whatever sexual act, and it would have never have been what they wanted. Sex is as much of a mental connection as it is a physical one. People who cheat don't do so because someone else is better at the physical stuff. They cheat because of whatever effed up connection or validation they are seeking from someone else. The physical piece of the equation is just how it all ends up spelling out the mental stuff. I recognize you're not here for an explanation, And I really don't want my comment to come off as a lecture. I'm saying these things because I want you to know that your fiancé cheating is because they are unable to communicate what they want. They lack the maturity to have a healthy relationship with others and are incapable of taking responsibility for their actions. It's 1,000 times easier to say that sex was boring instead of admitting their faults. Don't fall into their BS. It's not about you at all. It never was. Alright, next story. I caught my wife cheating with a good friend. This is one of the worst days of my life. I have a job that requires me to travel from time to time, and I was supposed to be out of town for the weekend. There was an important conference I needed to be at in another city, hours away. It was Friday night, and I drove to the airport to catch my flight. After waiting there for a couple of hours, I got a text from my boss saying he's feeling under the weather and is going to cancel the meeting. This already had me very upset. I wasted my entire day, plus I missed my chance to network with important people. I drove home and noticed my friend's car was parked in the driveway. This was not expected at all, so I simply thought he was in the neighborhood and decided to stop by. I've known this guy for 12 years, since high school, so I couldn't imagine him betraying me. I looked around the first floor and didn't see anyone, so I went upstairs. I heard some talking in the master bedroom and peered in. I was in horror when I saw one of my best friends in the middle of sex with my wife. They were both completely naked, and I got a full view of this guy. His manhood was clearly better off than mine. I confronted them right away and kicked out my friend. I was at a loss for words, and my wife kept apologizing. I couldn't understand why she did this, or if this was even her first time cheating. She admitted that her sex life has been bad, and she wanted to get with other men. At this point, our marriage is over. I filed for divorce in the next few days. It's been 4 months since this happened, and I slipped into a real depression. Why did she think the sex was bad? He then describes his manhood himself, so I don't think I had any problems. I've been with 10 other girls and nobody complained. Usually when I'm having sex, they seem to enjoy it. Is it possible she's lying? I can't figure out the truth and it's wrecking my self-image. I haven't talked to my friend since this happened, and I'm so pissed that he stabbed me in the back for no reason. I don't know what to do to get out of this slump I'm in. Our first comment comes from Mr. Niz. Stop fixating on the guy's junk. It's got nothing to do with his junk. Or really how your wife was or wasn't satisfied with intimacy in your marriage. Just forget about that. What happened, simply put, is your wife arrived at a point in her life where she gave herself permission to have sexual relations outside of her marriage. With some junk that wasn't her husband's junk. She decided to do it. Remember this, it wasn't something she fell into. It didn't just happen. It wasn't a mistake. She actively planned deceit. She actively carried out betrayal, and she actively lied to you for the duration of the affair, if not before then. That is the woman you are married to. If that isn't acceptable to you, you need to move on. It's not about your failures or shortcomings as a husband. It's about her choices, her decisions in the marriage. 1,000 decisions had to be made to get where you ended up. Should I smile at this guy? Should I flirt with that guy? Should I laugh at this guy's jokes? Should I text him? Should I send him nudes? Should I meet him in a motel? And so on, until she's grinding junk with a stranger. Because she wanted to. You know the answer to all of those thousands of questions had to be, no, I'm a married woman and I won't be doing that. She knew it too. Still, here we are. Because she gave herself permission to do it. Because she thought there would be no consequences. Don't let this destroy your life. It wasn't your making. You're the innocent one here. You did nothing wrong. If I were you, I would take all the practical next step advice you're getting to heart. Yes, you probably should get tested for STDs and STIs. If you were fixated on the girth of his junk, you might have noticed if he had it inside a condom. If he didn't, well, this is definitely the time to get a test for STDs. Your wife is raw dogging it with strangers. I would also realize this is probably not her first rodeo. Any woman who is cheating just for sexual thrills is already past a lot of marital boundaries and already has convinced herself, hey, why not? I'm going to have fun. I deserve it. She doesn't care what you think about the situation or the risks to your sexual health at all. Don't convince yourself she's remorseful. Don't convince yourself there's a path forward with her after this. From what you're saying, she gave up a while ago. Don't do the pygmy dance with her. She does not deserve it. Lastly, don't think I'm typing a one-note response either. There are cheating situations where a couple can reconcile. From what you have written, this is not one of them. Be well. Our last comment comes from Condor90046. I'm sorry, this is just horrible. How did you let your best friend just walk out? That had to be hard. If I walked in on my wife and I didn't know the man, I would probably let him go. But a friend? No way. In the world I grew up in, the bastard would have never gotten a pass. As for the wife, you should have grabbed a suitcase, stuffed it with her clothes, and thrown her right out the door. I read these accounts of women in adultery all the time on Reddit, and am amazed how most of the accounts of catching spouses in the act could end with a husband just turning around and walking out. I must have grown up on an alien planet. Almost any scenario involving this set of circumstances, someone is going to pay a high price. I do not condone violence. I'm just saying raw human emotions don't rationalize consequences when that is thrown right in your face. Please help me out here. I can't be the only one who feels this way.